Hey everyone, my name is Jim and I'm going to take you through how to solve your first lesson. If you haven't read this already, as a quick course overview, there are labs and there are readings. And a reading just consists of something maybe like this, where you're just sort of scrolling down and reading the text, and possibly it might be a code along. It might ask you to open up a playground file or Xcode and write some code. But generally the readings is more just you grasping a topic for the first time by reading it over here. And a lab, though, is interactive. It asks that you sort of open up Xcode, write some code, solve some problems that the instructions are asking you to solve, and then a lab might contain tests, which will make sure that you are implementing these various functions correctly. It might not have any test. It might just ask that you write the code and sort of submit it back to us to let us know that you've completed it. For this particular lab, it does include tests. Ultimately, we just want to right off the bat check to see that we can get these lights working for you. I've completed this lab already, but it might state that 1, you have to fork the lab, 2, you have to pass local tests, and 3, I think you can just check off that you've completed the lesson. If you find that going through this lab and the instructions I'm about to give you, that the lights aren't working, then make sure that you run back here to this link, which will bring you to the back to the welcome reading. Make sure that you've gone through all the necessary instructions here. 1, that you're running Xcode 8, right? That you have the latest version of Xcode. 2, that you're able to run this command. Right? This will allow you to sort of set up this customized terminal. 3, that you've refreshed your bash profile by typing this in. Make sure you were able to write this command in and install the necessary components. And very important step is that you've set up your SSH key, which, 1, you need a GitHub account in order to do this, but make sure you've gone through these 3 steps and the instructions that GitHub provides to not only set up your SSH key, but to connect it to your GitHub account. This is a really important step. After you've done that, you then want to paste this command into terminal, which will run the necessary commands that will sort of get these lights up and running. Right? This command will connect learn with your GitHub account. And who doesn't love Adventure Time? But anyway, once you get that set up, then you should be in a good spot where the lights should be working. If not, then definitely raise an issue, and then one of us will try to help you out. So I like to think of these labs as something, if you want to bring up the analogy of a student and a teacher, that the teacher has on his or her desk the lesson to hand out, the lab to hand out, and you need to bring that lab back to your desk. Your desk as a student is your computer. So notice, if we're on Learn right now, if we were to click this little guy here, this GitHub cat, right, open in GitHub, if you click that link, it should bring you to a page just like this. Think of this Learn Code -students here as the teacher's desk. But we want to have our own version of the exam. We want to take back this lab to our desk. So a really important step, and one that might be the reason your tests or the lights aren't working, is to fork. Right? We need to fork, which is to say, I want to bring this exam back to my desk. And you want to make sure you're clicking the desk, right? Think of these as these various desks you could bring this exam back to, your own desk. Right? At Jim Campano is my GitHub username. I want to make sure I'm forking or cloning or copying this exam back to this desk. So I'll click that. And in doing so, you should notice now it no longer states learn-co-students. It states Jim Campano. This says, okay, I now am sitting at my desk with my own version of this particular lab. Only then, when you see your name up here or your GitHub username, can you then move forward to the next step. And again, the next step is to clone or download the lab down to your computer. Right? We need to sort of now because this is a URL, this is on the web, right? It's like this address on the internet where this particular lab lives. Again, it's my own version of it, but now I need to get it down to my computer. So let's do that. I recommend, and it's very important that you set it up via this SSH key. That way we don't have to, if it says clone with HTTPS, you want to say use SSH. You want this to be done cloning with SSH. And again, this won't work if you didn't set up your SSH key. If you click that, I guess it might go through more instructions, but again, on the welcome screen or the welcome reading are the various steps in order to set that up for you. So MindStage clone with SSH. It's then giving me this link. I'm going to copy it. I'm then going to open up Terminal. Let's actually increase the font size of this. That way everyone can see this. Might be a little too big. Let's go 24. So now that I'm back in Terminal, I want to write git, right? So this is a command, git space clone space, and I'm going to command V to paste now that particular URL in here that we've copied in. So now if I was to hit enter, well actually you know what, before I do that, I'm sorry, before you do that, I want to type ls. I want to see where I'm going to actually sort of clone this down to. ls is to view the current directory you're in. cd space, if I type in des, because I want to save this to my desktop, and then I hit tab, it'll autocomplete. Hit return or enter. I'm now on my desktop. Notice in green shows you where you currently are. So if I type ls, I can see that there's nothing there, right? I have a clean desktop. So again, git space clone. I will then sort of hit return, and you should see something like this where it cloned down. Now you should see this folder here. Type ls again, and I can see that there's this folder. Pretty cool. So I can now cd into that folder, considering it's the only one on my desktop. If I type sw to begin typing this out, hit tab to then autocomplete the rest of it. So I don't have to type it all, that'd be annoying. Hit enter. I've now entered this folder. See, it's in green. That's where I am right now. I'm inside of that directory. This is the branch I'm on. We won't go into that now, but just know that we're on the master branch. If I was to type ls, I can then see the contents of this folder, right? And it should match up here with the URL, right? Because I have all of these files now locally on my machine. I want to now open up this Xcode project file. This is opening up Xcode. How can I do that? Well, I can actually just double-click the directory or the folder and double-click the file here, which will open up Xcode, or I can do it through Terminal by typing open space hello. I'll begin to type hello, tab over to autocomplete. Notice though that it didn't fully autocomplete the Xcode proj because there are multiple files with this that begin with hello to the universe. So now I need to type .xc, right? That begins typing this. I can then tab over to autocomplete for it to complete the Xcode proj. If I type return, it'll now should open up Xcode. Now Xcode is open. Generally now the instructions will tell you to navigate to a specific file. In this case it'll navigate to the greeting.swift file. Let's sort of make this much larger. Actually presentation should do the trick. Let's do presentation large. So normal instructions will state, okay, hey, navigate to a specific file. In this case, the greeting.swift file. It might then ask you to complete a function, right? The instructions might state, make a function called hello universe that takes in no arguments but returns back a string. So then you're required to implement the function, which is to say, oh, okay, I'm going to return back a string hello universe. Not to go any specifics as to what a function is its return types and stuff like that, as that's what the subsequent lessons go over, we've created the function for you, right? So we've sort of supplied the answer. Now, a lot of times these labs, or some of these labs, include tests. So this sort of test file here is doing its thing to make sure that we've implemented the function correctly, right? And if we didn't, it would throw an error. This would be a red little box, and it would say, you did not implement this correctly. Now, when you're done implementing your lab or completing the lab, holding down the command key, then pressing the letter U on your keyboard should run the tests. And it should say, if everything's fine, well, the build has succeeded. It should say, tests have succeeded. Let's make sure that's the case. Testing, test succeeded. And if we go to the test file, we should see that we have these green check marks here. Now, when we run the test like that, we should notice, again, we've included the answer for you. There's no code you have to write in this lab. If we went back, again, I've already completed the lab, but if we went back now to learn, we can refresh the page, and you should see that 1, there should be a green light next to forked this lab. 2, there should be a green light next to pass local tests, which means now we've completed the lab. So now what happens now that we've sort of finished this lab? We've done what the instructions wanted. Again, there was nothing you had to do here. We've given you the answer. Well, you'll now close Xcode. You'll go back to terminal. And if we do git status, we can see if there's any difference between what we've done. There isn't. Okay. To go over maybe what git status does, I'm going to type ls. Let's open up Xcode project again to show you something. If I was to sort of, let's say, type return here and maybe write a print statement and say, hello, everyone watching this. What's really cool is if I write git, which is a command, space status, it will let me know that, hey, we've modified a file. We've modified the greeting.swift file. Now, what we can do is, considering locally, meaning on our own machine in this folder, we've modified this particular file, the greeting.swift file. GitHub, or meaning this particular URL, is unaware of this change right now. Right? If I was to sort of navigate to this greeting.swift file via the URL, notice how there's a difference. Right? It's not sort of saving in real time to the web. Locally, yes. And that's what this is basically telling us. It's recognizing that there's a difference. What we can do is we can git space add. This period says add all the files that are different. Then we can git commit, which is to associate a message -m. We're going to associate a message with what we've done. We can say add print statement. We've now added, right? We've sort of said, okay, we're going to add this file. We're going to now, by writing commit -m like this, we're sort of associating a message with it. Now we need to sort of push up these changes to GitHub. And if I write git push, it's going to do its thing and talk to the web. And now if I was to refresh this page, look at that. Now it says, hello, everyone watching this. So now, by going through those 3 various steps, the code that I've written locally on my machine that lives in this folder now matches and is identical to the code that or the files on the web. So now anyone can see these changes. Right? And I can go to any other computer now. I can go to my computer at work, my friend's house, bring down the files by doing what I did before, and I will have the exact same Xcode project on those computers as I do locally. That's pretty cool stuff. So now that we've done that, we need to sort of submit our completed exam back to the teacher. And we do so by what's referred to as submitting a pull request. So if we navigate back to where our desk is, right? Here's Jim Campano, here's the lab that I have. you should see that we can submit a new pull request. If I tap that button, I should be brought to a screen just like this, which actually will tell you the changes you've made. Granted, I've only added this one print statement. I will then tap this button, create pull request. I can associate a message with it. It'll be the same as I did before. That's fine. I'll leave that alone. I will then type create pull request, and that now submits our exam back to the teacher. If you see a screen like this, that means we're good to go. We're done. You can then come back to here, probably check off that you've completed the lab, and then click next lesson to move on to the next lesson. Now, there's definitely a few people having issues with lights. Again, what I touched on earlier on is to make sure that you've done the necessary steps here on the welcome reading. Make sure everything is set up that way. Make sure you've typed in all those commands in terminal. Make sure that you have forked over the version of this lab to your GitHub repository. I'm sorry, to your GitHub. Notice how, again, I have Jim Campano up here before I cloned or downloaded it. It's important that you've cloned down from your own version of the exam. And that should be enough for you to have those lights to light up. If not, then definitely raise an issue, and we can look to solve it that way. But I wish you luck on your journey, and have fun.